G'day and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura.
We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their support and bringing you our live weekly Q&As.
Today we are fortunate enough to be speaking with Bill Luff from Cotway Kelpies, and Bill will be picking what he thinks the best question is, and they will win a bag of Enduro Plus high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat. Hi Bill, tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do.
G'day, Laura and Dan. Bill Luff, 68 years old. I've been working on the farm, our farm. We own this farm. We've been here since 1836 on some of it. We've slowly built it up over the years, and I've got two boys at home, both work at home. We're in Adjunbilly, which is plenty of rain, 32-inch rainfall, and pretty high country, about 500 metres. Run about 6,000 ewes and 600 cows, so we keep pretty busy.
Yeah, it's pretty busy, mate. Where did your passion for livestock and dogs come from, mate?
Left school quite young, and I was given a pup after I left school, and fell madly in love with him, and we sort of grew together. He had quite a bit of natural work in him, and we used to do rabbiting as well, and he was just my mate for 10 years, I suppose, and I started with him. That was my love for dogs, came from him. Yeah, I just worked stock all my life. I've been on the land for 54 years, so I've been doing quite a bit of work.
Was that first dog a Kelpie, mate, or was there something else?
I just got him from my uncle. And then as I got going, a bloke by the name of Bruce Graham. Excuse me.
You're all right.
How do you turn that off? A bloke by the name of Bruce Graham bought a Kelpie bitch from Jack Body down at Holbrook, and she was lit assist to Glen Logie Lucky that Chris Stapleton had.
Yeah.
And I had one here with a little bit of eye, and he just at a creek crossing one day, he just showed a bit of eye and a bit of cover and footwork, and I sort of got a bit of a glimmer. And then I went up to see Brucey one day and to look at his dogs, and then there was an old bloke with the name of John Elliott there, and he'd won Canberra 3 Sheep a few times, and I just fell in love with it there and then. He was at one end of the ground, the sheep were following him, and the dog was with him. He was just drawing the sheep along, and I just fell in love with it that minute, and I've done it ever since. That was in 1987.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Have you tried any other breeds or since?
Oh, I did have a few
Kelpies
when I was 3 sheeping, but I'd much prefer the Kelpies. There are good collies, but yeah, I think the Kelpies more rounders, and they suit me.
Yeah. Why do they suit you better, mate?
Oh, they're just a bit more robust. The collies were good, but they didn't bark. I like a bit of bark. Collies, they bite a bit. There's some. I've had some no good Kelpies too, and I've had some fairly handy collies, but Kelpies just sort of suit me. Their natures, I just like their natures. Yeah, I don't dislike collies. There's some beautiful collies, but
100%. But they just suit your particular what you like, work and trial wise.
Yeah,
more down to a T.
Yeah, and they get on with the job, and I just like the way they work, and they're friendly. Got a pretty good. I did have my pack isn't as good as it was, but I'm building again.
Starting
to go again, I hope.
We'll get onto that a bit later.
I don't.
How do you use dogs in your day-to-day life?
Oh, every day, just about every day we're doing stock work. So we've got buggies now rather than horses or motorbikes. So we've got buggies. I can fit 3 or 4. I might take a pup, have him tied up most of the time. Just let him off once we get to laneways, but just mustering, droving, drenchings, whatever, drafting sheep. Don't use them much on cattle, not on cows and calves. We use them on dry cattle, but very rarely we use dogs on cattle because we've got a lot of laneways here. But just about use them every day on sheep, every time, yeah. It makes life a lot easier.
Able to look without dogs?
Oh, it'd be impossible. Like it's quite hilly here and just couldn't do it. Yeah. Or you'd have a very fast motorbike. No, you couldn't do it. I do all the mustering, like the boys do all the drenching and so forth. I just do all the mustering, keep the sheep up at shearing time especially. and landmarking. I just go out and muster and bring them up and take the other mob away, which works perfectly. It's good training for my dogs, and I don't have to do the hard work.
That's okay.
So tell us a bit about your current team you've got there at the moment.
Yeah, well, I had a dog called Yellow Roy Toss. He was by old boss, Chris Stapleton's. And he wasn't a brilliant dog, but I think he's a pretty good size. So I had him and an old bitch called Coopendale Floss. And every dog bar one that I've got have all got Toss or Floss in them, or both. And they just suit me. Like, they're not brilliant. They're just good work dogs. And they're not brilliant trial dogs. I'd call them a good handy dog with a little bit of balance, bit of cast, bit of bark. And they just seem to suit me. So I was just stuck with them. There are better dogs out there, but I don't know, that bloodline, both those bloodlines just seem to suit. And at the moment, I don't have any real champions, I don't suppose, but they're all handy.
And were Floss and Toss, were they similar kind of dogs, or they just complemented each other?
Yeah, complemented each other. Toss was much better in the paddock. Floss wasn't that strong, but she'd back a race all day, and a drenching race, grafting race all day. And clean, both were clean as whistles, didn't bite. But Floss had a really good nature. She was by Twisty of Chris Stapleton's, Capri Twisty.
Yep.
Just a lovely old bitch, and just a hard worker. She won Henty Field Days, but that was her only trial she ever won. But she was just a good, honest bitch. And Toss was just a good farm dog. He wasn't that good. He didn't like trialling much, but he was a good farm dog and just a good sire. So it sort of worked, those two.
And you mentioned before that your dogs probably current dog team isn't as good as what you had. How has your team evolved? Like, how's it changed? Why is that?
Well, I've probably gone. I had a bit of rough country years ago, and I used to have a lot better paddock dogs, but now I haven't got that rougher country. I don't really need that really nice paddock dog, but I would love to have it back again. But and I'm trying to go breeding that way a bit, trying to breed a bit softer, more paddocky type. But then you go to a yard trial and you wish you didn't have them. So so my pack has changed. It's gone more yard type, because I used to three sheep for 10 years, and in the finish, you'd have a mob of 500 shorn lambs. You couldn't keep them in a mob. So I ended up getting more and more, probably closer and tighter running dogs. But the pack I've got now would do more work than the ones I had when I had softer paddock dogs. But I do miss having that really nice dog that looks out and goes, for ages. But I don't have them anymore. Oh, they're all right. But because we're not on horses, or you leave the buggy, put the dogs in the buggy, and probably most of your casting's done on the buggy these days, and then let the dogs go. So that's just what's happening, I suppose, with everyone.
Are there any particular traits you'd like to put back into your lines?
Yeah, I'd like to get more cast back in, more, and look out. The dogs are getting a bit of tunnel vision now. They're probably getting stronger, which is handy when you're trialling, but just that tunnel vision, I'd prefer if they just had that. I like cover and footwork and a bit of bark, but also I like them to have all the mob, make sure you send them in the paddock, and if there's 20, 15 yards away, that they get them too. Like, they have a bit of vision, and I've sort of lost that in the last 10 years a bit. Maybe it's to do with my country and the way I'm working them, and I probably haven't practiced the 3 sheep trial for 25 years, so I'm only practicing in yards, so I'm probably losing it a bit that way too. But I think, if I had more time, I'd probably 3 sheep a bit more, and it might come back.
So you actually like a dog trying to get that cast. You're trying to look for that naturally rather than train that. Is that?
Oh, it must be. You can train it, but it must be natural. It's so much easier if it's natural. They go a pear-shaped cast, and they'll see one out to the left or right and just go and get it. Whereas the ones that don't have it just run through, and you can train them all you like. Unless it's natural, they won't do it properly.
And do you think something that does that natural misses out somewhere else?
Yeah, I've judged a few utility trials. I judged over at Yagara, and the really good paddock dogs didn't quite have enough in the yards. There was only one there that probably did both properly.
Yep.
But the really nice paddock dogs didn't have the grunt in the yards. But there were a couple there that did, but generally the real good paddock dogs didn't. But they'd be very good 3 sheepdogs. I sort of got the conclusion that, in a mob of, say, 8 dogs, you need one that's got that real nice stuff, and then the rest, because most of it's the hard, once you get them in, it's the hard work.
Yeah. I'll never forget that. I remember that trial, mate, you judged, and that was my first utility trial, and I won't forget the advice you gave me. It was, gee, she's a handy yard dog. Might want to work on her a bit outside first, though.
Yeah. No, she is a good dog. Actually, I've seen a pup out of her, or 2 pups out of her this morning, and they're going really well, especially one.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to leave her here, I think.
Oh, I've got one here, mate. Another one here that's probably in the same boat, but he's maturing up well, so hopefully he pulls his head in outside a bit more.
Yeah.
But he's going to be a handy dog, handy enough anyways.
Right.
Speaking of,
How do you pick a pup for yourself, and has that changed over the years?
No, it probably hasn't changed. I just like one, probably the best head in the litter, biggest head, boof, like bigger jaws, and just a nice nature. The one that's coming wants to be with you all the time. That's the main one I pick, and probably probably the bigger one, but it's very hard.
So if you're giving advice to someone picking a pup, and they weren't exactly sure what they liked?
First of all, I'd tell them to go and have a look at the parents, or go to a trial somewhere, and before they're buying a pup, go and have a look at the parents. Make sure that you'd like the parents. But it's very, like a 6-week-old pup is nearly impossible. But there are shy ones in those, so you don't want to pick that shy one if you can help it. But you want the friendly one. But as they get older, like once they start working, straight away, once if you see a litter working, they're all together, you'll know which one's going to be wide, which one's going to be hard, close. It's just straight away. The first time they work, you can see that, and it very rarely changes for the rest of their life, I think. Sometimes their natures will let them down later on. Like I've had some really good pups that didn't quite make it as they got older because they couldn't handle the pressure or whatever, but just the natural ones, I like to see that real natural work. Yeah.
So, question here from Karen Higgins. How do you start a pup or young dog, and how do you progress as the dog gets older and matures? What signs are you looking for?
Yeah, well, I start them off in the yards. I have a few quiet old sheep, like cripple type sheep that can't run very fast, and put the pup on them. And straight away, once the pup starts working, you just look for a bit of balance and a bit of eye, and then start doing a bit of circle work with it, so it'll do the 360 and they must get to the head. Pups must head properly, get around, and then be on the point of balance at the opposite side to you. It's just a work in progress. 3 minutes once a week's enough for a pup, but always have him with you, take him down for a buggy ride or whatever, take him for a run, but 3 minutes once a week's enough for a pup up to 6 months of age. And then as they get a bit older, you put a sit on them and teach them to come off stock. But it's just so slow. Years ago, I had them nearly fully broken in at 12 months, but I don't even think about that anymore. I don't even take them to work now till they're 12, 14 months old. And I find the dogs, you don't blow near as many up if you can take your time with them. Yeah.
Do you think you've slowed up on breaking dogs in purely for your experience and maturing?
Yeah, I was always in a hurry, like everyone, as they get a dog, and say for yard dog, if he starts backing, all you're trying to do is teach him to back. But if you got enough around you, you can just leave that one and don't put any pressure on him until they get a bit older. And it's made a big difference. I mightn't start trialling a dog till he's 18 months old, or nearly 2. But they need 6 months' work, I think, before they even trial. That's okay to say if you can do that. But if you can't do that, it's a bit hard. But I can do it here. And just slowly bring them along. Dogs I would have got rid of years ago, I'm now keeping that extra 6 months, and they're turning into it. I think they'll be better dogs for it. Well, I hope they are anyway.
There you go. There's a question in that, I suppose. Obviously, we have a lot of trialers that don't have access to work every day, and that 6 months that you talk about to like get them, take them to work, and working them down a bit. If you weren't working them down for our trialers out there, how would you go about getting those dogs to getting them to a level where you can trial them?
Well, I think the main thing, if you didn't have any work, is have a softer natured type dog. Don't have that real busy dog, the calmer type dog that it doesn't need work. Like a dog really shouldn't need to be worked down to go to a trial. It does. They do work better. I know after shearing or whatever, if I go trialling the week after shearing, my dogs are a lot better. But I think, you just have to go for a bit of a calmer breed, I think, more calm.
That, or I might have to start chasing around some shearing trailers.
Yeah, well, you need to get on the hand piece yourself and calm down.
This we know.
You go pretty hard. And the dogs do too. But I don't know how. I know there are a lot of hobby farmers that trial these days. It must be quite hard. I just don't know how they do it, because dogs get sick of practicing or get sick of 10 sheep all the time. They need a lot of work and having to think, crossing creeks and gateways, and it's so much easier. Well, it's better for the dog. But yeah, it must be very hard to have to trial kelpies that are tied up a lot of the time and not just doing those 10 sheep day in, day out. Must get a bit boring for the dog, I think.
Not just the dog sometimes, mate.
No, that's right. I'm sure everyone would love to do what I do. Just lucky, I suppose.
That's awesome. I've got a question here from Vince McCurry. Have you noticed a change in dogs over the last 30 years? And what has changed? And do you believe it's for the better?
Yeah, I think dogs are getting better. Well, yard trialling, I started through sheeping, and the kelpies those days were sort of a softer, wider dog. But as yard trialling came in, I don't know, back in the when Chris Stapleton, Michael Johnson, Robert Cox, Steve Condell, when those fellas were all in their prime, Richard Putty came, it's nearly impossible to win a trial. Like, they'd turn up with 6 or 8 really good dogs. Oh, Larry Wallace, there's a heap of them. Like, you'd turn up and there'd be 15 really good handlers. I just don't know whether, like, their dogs would be still very competitive today. So I don't know whether the dogs are getting any better, but there's certainly a lot more handlers now could win a trial than there were those days. But I don't know, dogs are any different. Like, the real standout dog is not there anymore, like the Basils or the Pats or the Bosses, or I don't know. It's been a long time since a dog's just taken and won. Or ABBA of Kevin Howes is probably the last one 3 or 4 years ago, just come out and win trial after trial after trial. So, but there's still some really good dogs out there, good young dogs getting around. Find out when you're judging, when you see the good dogs. Don't necessarily win the trial, but there's some really good dogs still getting around for sure.
And I think you touched on a few things there, like obviously the consistency in dogs, but handlers as well. Like, you just don't know what handler is going to win, and 1 point is the difference between a final and not a final. And that handler can steal that point from the dog rather than the dog steal it from the handler these days.
Well, if you're judging a novice trial, most handlers lose 10 points. It's until they get going a bit. But the open trial, the handler is massive. What those better handlers, they don't like. I remember judging Justin Toombs over at Canberra a couple of years ago in the wet. Some of the stuff he did was magic. Like, he was 5 or 6 points above everyone else just in his handling. What he did a couple of times. Yeah. And there's like Joe Spicer's the same. You judge Joe Spicer, he just doesn't lose points. Like, I suppose it's stockmanship. I don't know what it is, but they've got it worked out, I know. But whether they should do trials, you can't teach stockmanship. You can learn it, but it's a massive thing when you're trialling, stockmanship. And I think it comes from experience of working and trialling. Yeah.
Why do you think the stockmanship's getting better? What do you think's bringing that on?
I don't know whether it's getting better. It's always been there.
Sorry, more widespread within trialling, like. Do you think it's trialling itself, or just
Well,
people looking at
seems to
working
be
stock
these
differently?
days, a lot of young fellas are trialling that are now managing farms, or they've left ag college and they come home and get a dog, and like young managers around farms. There's more young farmers trialling these days, I think, or younger, like people in their 20s and 30s. And yeah, they're getting well-bred dogs and going from there. But it does help to have a lot of work. And you just keep turning over the ones that don't suit, get rid of them. There's always, they'll usually suit someone.
Yep.
Like, but yeah, I don't know. There are a lot more handlers. I think there's a lot more trialers. Like years ago, you'd go to a trial, there'd be 30 dogs, be a big trial. These days, there's 130, and you come to a novice this year, there's 130 dogs. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about Floss and Toss. Do you believe they were your most influential dogs to get you where you are today?
Yeah, I think Toss was more so than Floss. He had quite a few bitches, and a lot of his pups work well. Yeah, he probably wasn't the best dog I've ever had, but he just bred well, which is he was out of pretty good parents. His father was boss of Stapleton's, and his mother was by signature of Richard Puttycombs, who was by chance. So look, really good old time breeding. And I wish I had kept some semen from him actually, but I didn't get around to it. It wasn't done as much those days. But if I had him these days as a young dog, I'd get some semen out of him for sure. Because a lot of the bitches these days, it'd suit. You know, there's more trial-y type bitches these days, those strong, quieter type dogs. He'd probably suit them as a sire, I would say.
Why do you think he'd suit those particular bitches?
Oh, just he was a big, flat-footed bloke. Like he didn't have a real lot of cover. I don't know. It just seemed to. Jake Nowlan brought a watch bitch here 4 times, and she was quite a strong, good-looking, strong bitch, and they every one of those litters, they all work differently, but they were all good. Every one was good, and she was really strong. It was just a good mating, and I just think that was the sort of bitch he needed, because he didn't have a lot of grip, but he was a nice casting dog, plenty of bark. He just got on with the job. He was just a good all-round. He was a good farm dog rather than a good trial dog. So he needed that more intense type bitch, I think, to join to. Yeah, most.
So that goes.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Sorry, mate, I was just saying that goes back to what you were saying before with complementing each other rather than like for like.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you can go like for like, I think, but every dog has faults. So
Yeah.
I just to try and cover those faults, you get a dog that hasn't got the same fault.
Yeah.
If you need cast, you go to a casting dog. You need grunt, you go to a dog with more backing or barking or strength. Yeah, you can't breed week to week, or even strong to strong sometimes doesn't work. Depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that pup you were about to talk about, or younger dog, or I've
Which
rudely
one?
cut
Sorry?
you off. You were just about to talk about a younger dog,
Oh, I had a dog.
but I couldn't help
I had
myself.
a dog called Wonder, Coogee Wonder.
Yeah.
Who was boss. He's probably the best trial dog I've ever had. He didn't get a lot of bitches. He was probably too pretty for most people, but like he won Henty 3 times. He got in the top 20 at Henty 3 times in the 3 sheep, and he'd never seen an obstacle. He was just a natural trial dog. He wasn't that good a farm dog, but I think he only had about 6 bitches. But like Boko Wonder of Matty Sherwood's is buying. I just wish he had had more bitches, but I couldn't use him because he was too close to all mine. But he didn't have a real lot of presence, but he had plenty of cover and footwork. But anyway, he was a toss by toss out of that watch bitch of Jake Nowlan's. Yeah, but he's probably my best trial dog that I've ever had. He probably will ever get. I don't know. I hope not, but anyway.
What is one of the main things you see handlers struggle with?
I think stock work and getting their dogs broken in properly. If they're making mistakes when they're training, like letting the dog cross or not being if the handler is in the right position, the dog learns so much quicker. That's why schools are good because the person has to know where to be when they're breaking a dog in. If they're in the wrong position, the pup might cross or cut a sheep off or something, only because it's the handler's fault. So it all comes back to stockmanship, I suppose. But yeah, just being in the right position when you're breaking them in makes a big difference. And you can see straight away, people come here and they're out of position and the pup might cross 3 times in the first minute. Well, he's not learning anything from doing that. So you're trying to teach the person rather than teaching the dog.
Speaking of, mate, I've got a pretty in-depth question here from Marie McKillop. I attended one of your training weekends and introduction to yard trialling with Neil Taylor, Pete Darmody and yourself, held at West Wyalong for beginners only, and took so much away and found it an awesome foundation for starting out training and trialling. So we're going to break it down into 3 questions. Why did you guys do that weekend, a few of those weekends? What inspired it?
Oh, Peter just rang up one day and it was going to be a judging day more than anything, but there weren't many people turned up. But oh yeah, that was enjoyable. Peter just rang up, so Neil and I went over and helped him out. And you see some very good young dogs, like a lot of them are purebred, but the handlers don't know much. So yeah, I quite enjoyed actually just teaching new chums. Probably only 1 in 10 will ever trial. 1 in 10 will ever do any good out of it. But if they get benefit out of it, it's all good for the industry. But it's amazing how much people don't know when if they haven't done much stock work, and just where to be. I'm glad. Was that Mary? She's a saint, isn't she, Mary McKillop?
I call her Mary McKillop. It is Marie, but I'll call her Mary. Yeah. So she's asked, are there plans to do more of them in different locations around New South Wales?
Oh, I'm sure there are. It's quite a big, like Peter Darmody is a legend, what he's done for the industry with his schools, and like he did one of the high schools out there. He got all the year 10 boys to get a dog each at the start of the year, and he started them all going, and that was part of their agricultural course for the year. And but yeah, it's a very good thing. It just takes, you just want a keen young committee to do it, and it's very good. Like there's a lot of kids come home from school or they go through ag college and they're all keen. There's quite a pack around here now, 6 or 8 young fellas around here that come out here quite often. And I've got a little yard set up every now and again. I set up a little yard trial and we just run them through a yard trial, show them what you have to do in a yard trial and where you're losing points and not. They're sort of astounded by it. I don't think I'm teaching them much, but apparently they're learning quite a bit because it's
Stop teaching those guys, mate. We don't need any more competition.
No, I think this group that's around here now, there's about 4 boys. I reckon they'll all trial in the next couple of years. Whether they stick at it or not, I don't know. They're all single young fellas, but their dogs are going quite well, and they're learning a lot.
That's awesome, mate. And I'm sure they're learning more about than just training dogs as well, mate. Don't ride yourself short there either. Probably learning a few life skills.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope they are. Yeah, they've been to a couple of schools. They had a couple. I think Paul McPhail's. They've been to a couple of. They've just invited Paul up for the weekend, and he teaches them all the dog skills. Anyway, the more schools they can go to, the better, because everyone teaches differently and everyone has different ideas. But as long 100%. As they can pick up 1 or 2 things from a school, it's a bloody great thing to learn. I wish I had them when I was coming along, learning.
I think you touched on the third question, part of her question as well, is do you think they were successful and have you seen an improvement in handling ability?
Yeah, they're definitely one of the most. A few years ago, Peter Darmody got Steve Condell to run a trial for learners for the weekend at his place, and Steve's quite an intense coach and talks a lot, but they learn a lot, but can't retain everything because he can talk faster than you, Dan.
That's true.
Chris Sellers, there was 4 or 5 people come out of that school that went straight into very competitive, like from they were beginners or encouraged workers to actually really good novice workers within a matter of weeks. They had the dogs, but they just didn't have the ability of where to be when you're trialling and, not moving when you've got a gate open. And so that was a really good thing just for beginner trialers, because people don't know where they're losing their points. They don't know, they'll go out in the trial ground and not much is said. And that's why I encourage, there aren't so many encouraged trials these days, which is a shame, because that's where you learn that sort of stuff. Encouraged trials are just a school for basic, or even a school for novice handlers where they're losing their points. A lot of people still don't know where they're losing their points.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually the bit I was gonna touch on after Mary's question. Then was so I attended that, as you know, for the judging side of that, and I took a heap away from that. So I'd actually like to see more of those, and I know a few of my mates were there. And the feedback I got from those encouraged handlers that had trialled that was they took a heap away from you guys helping us, or teaching us how to judge, to be honest. Like they had no idea where they were losing points. And I would actually like to see more of those myself. And I know COVID's been a bit hard as well. Obviously it's impacted everyone, but moving forward, that's something I'd like to see more of. And where do you think we could do more of them, but also for beginners? But how about before, for those novice judges stepping up into open to give a bit more experience? Do you think we could do a bit more training, so to speak, between those gaps?
Well, I think that was the idea of Peter's day, that to have, I know everyone judges differently, and like Neil Taylor was taking points off, just under how we did the day. Someone would just do a section and then we'd stop and say, how many points did you take? How many points did you take? And we had other people judging there. And so everyone was judging and why you took points and why you didn't take points. It probably would have been better if we had it on video as well. But they are very good. But there weren't enough people turned up for the judging side of things, I didn't think, because we are short of judges. Like, it's very hard to, especially open judges, but you still have to be able to, an open judge actually runs the trial. And if you get a judge that's a little bit, a bit weird, not that you shouldn't care what the judge, you just take your score on the chin and go home. But it was a really good day that day at Peters. We do need a few more. And if you had a novice handler dog school, and then have someone there with a video camera showing them where they lose their points, and that's how you learn to judge.
100%.
By knowing where you lose your points. So when you go out to trial, you're out there to lose as least amount of points as you possibly can, and the more experience you get, sometimes you're covering for your dog. You might, he's going to bite, so you don't let him. All those different things. There's that many little things you can do to save points at a trial. A good handler seems to be able to do it.
Do you believe judging makes you a better handler?
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I encourage as many people as I can to take up judging. Once they get a bit of an idea, take up judging. What you see is you see what the good fellas do, but you see what the people that aren't as good, where they lose points. And that's probably when you're judging, they're losing points. And when you're judging, you see it more than if you just watch it. And before it happens, it's going to happen. So, and then you trial someone with a good dog and a good handler. You think, it's easy as that. But everyone should try judging. I still think you can't just go and be a judge without having a bit of experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but there's plenty of people out there that don't judge that probably should, because there aren't many judges around New South Wales these days. But it's a good thing to do. I quite enjoy judging.
You give up a lot of time and dedicate yourself to judging and being so active in the New South Wales Yard Dog Association. What inspires you to do that?
I just like helping people. I just get a bit of a thrill out of it, actually. someone will come and thank you. Or 2 or 3 years' time, that same person that was a beginner when you started wins a novice or something like that. I just get a thrill out of that. Well, even Dan, Dan's improved out of sight. We run the Gundy Guy show every year. It's only a very small committee, but people come back year after year, and all of a sudden they're quite competitive, and away they go. I really enjoy helping people.
And we mentioned before that you started trialling, I think it was in 1987. Why did you start trialling there, and what changes have you seen besides, I suppose we touched on stock handling ability, but is there anything else in terms of course setups or anything that have changed?
Well, I three-sheeped until about 1999. I three-sheeped and then went yard trial. Original yard trials, there was no car. It was only one small pen. The biggest pen was probably 4 metres square. So you just went from pen to pen. There was a drench and a draft, no truck. But these days you'll need a much better dog outside because of the big yards. You get to a gateway, and you used to be able to help if you got a jam and a draft, you'd leave the gate and go and grab that sheep. You'd only lose 2 points. So the dog these days has to be a much more aggressive and better dog. The rules were like, it didn't start till, I don't know when it started, 85 or something, but it's certainly a lot better sport these days. You need a better dog. You need a better all-rounder. Like, you go to a big trial, say Canberra with that big cast, they're good fun. Like, you need a bit of everything. If you can win a yard trial like Canberra, you've got a really good dog. Years ago, you could win a trial with a more yardy type dog, whereas these days you need nearly a utility dog to win the bigger trials.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it changes a lot of the dogs or what people are looking for in a dog as well. Not just in a trial, but for home and whatnot. I totally get what you're saying there.
Yeah, they've got more cast. Not that it's a real big cast, but unless they can cast, they can't get them in even in a big trial. They've got cover at a gateway. They've got push. They run a fence. They'll back. They'll top knot. Yeah, there's some pretty good dogs around. Especially if you go up to Monero, there's big tough sheep up there. You need everything up there. They're hard going up there. Yeah.
Do you have a favourite trial to participate in or would like to go to?
Oh, Gundy Guy show, I'd have to be up there.
I really enjoyed Gundy Guy this year, especially with the three shape. Yeah, well, it was good. I actually really enjoyed having the. Sorry.
I think you were on cloud 9 when you left last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a pretty good day.
I used to enjoy the Narandra free sheep probably more than any. And then, there's West Wollong's always good because you can run with maiden dogs, novice dogs, improver dogs, open dogs. Canberra's a very good trial. The Monero, they're all good. I enjoy it. It's just if I'm not there, I'm working. So I love going to trials. But
why? What do you like about going to trials?
I don't know what it is. I've got a bit of competitive streak in me, I suppose. I used to play quite a bit of sport when I was younger. But I just enjoyed the friends you meet. And I like going to the big trials. I'd rather go to a big trial than a little show trial. But there aren't many little trials these days either. Most trials, years ago, you'd go to a trial, there'd be only, say, 15 in the novice, 15 in the open. But I just enjoy people's friendship and a bit of a yarn and tell a few stories. But,
Never.
No, be competitive. Like, you wish everyone all the best, but when you go out there, you want to win. There's no reason. There's only one reason you go out there is to be competitive.
Yeah.
But there's too many people these days are a bit harsh on how people judge and so forth. An old bloke said to me once, "Get your score. No, take your dog back to your ute. Go back and get your score and go and sit down. Like, don't even think about what you scored." So these days it's a little bit competitive that way. You just take it on the chin. Like, it's only a sport. So just some people these days are a little bit too competitive in my thinking.
Yeah.
Or just want to win at all costs, which is a shame, really.
What do you think your best achievement so far would be?
Trialing.
Or in life, up to you.
Let's stick with trialing. I suppose we're in a theme here.
Yeah, I'd say by winning Henty 3 times. I won the Arandra 3 Sheep twice, which is like there's some pretty good handlers there with Kelpies. And then I won the National Kelpie Trial in 1990 over in South Australia. And then I won Henty 3 times with that one dog, Wonder. He's the only dog that no dog's even won it twice, so he won it 3 times. They're probably my picks of what I've done. Yeah, that's in the trial game anyway.
Good resume to have, mate.
Oh, that's all right. Oh,
And I suppose
I've judged New South Wales twice. I've judged the Victorian. That was good.
what do you prefer to judge, a 3 sheep yard or a utility trial?
Oh, utility trials are good. No, probably yard. Probably yard. Just the others are too slow. Like that's why I gave up 3 sheeping. You'd be there for 5 days with you'd only probably 3 or 4 runs. If you have two rings at a yard trial, you can have 8 or 10 runs in a day, have a final and go home, in one day.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy. I'm just too busy to be away for 5 or 6 days doing one trial a day. I couldn't stand that anymore. But that's why I enjoy yard trialing so much.
Question here from Ollie Hanson. What is the best advice you have received regarding training dogs?
Take your time, I think. Yeah, don't persevere with one that you don't like. You can't teach a dog you don't like. So, if you've got 2 or 3 coming on at once, you'll always take the good one is the one you should keep. Get rid of the other 2 because you'll never like them as much as the one you like. But if they don't suit, get rid of them early because whether you give them away or don't try and take them through to sell them. If you don't like them, no one else probably will anyway. I don't know. There's always somewhere you can go with a hobby farmer, or they'll usually do something for someone. But yeah, the main thing is make sure you like that pup, and then it's enjoyable to work them. Then you can have 2 or 3 at once if you like a lot of them. That's all right. But if you don't like them, sometimes they'll come better when they get older. But it's very hard to train a dog that you don't get on with.
Yeah. Earlier on, you mentioned a heap of names, of people that have been in and around trialling. Is there anyone particular that inspired you, or that drove you to go as hard as you could, or try and change your mindset at all over certain things?
Well, I mentioned John Elliott before. John was an old 3 sheeper from Gundagai. He won the Queen's Jubilee, which was a 3 sheep trial in Canberra in front of the Queen Elizabeth, and then he won the big one at Hall a couple of times. His brother Tony's still trialling, but Johnny was a lot older than Tony. He probably taught me more than anything. And then Toby Lindsay, I used to pencil. In those days, they didn't have clickers. They used to just write the scores down. And I used to pencil for Toby Lindsay when he was 3 sheeping. Like if you didn't have any dogs in the open, you could. And I used to pencil for 6 or 8 hours a day for Toby. And Toby's a really good 3 sheep trialer and judge. So probably from those 2 blokes, I learned more about stockmanship and just where to be and where you lose points. It's just 3 sheeping. But as far as yard trialing, I don't know. I've just sort of picked it up along the way, I suppose. But there's some bloody good handlers out there. You just see some people do things and you think, good God, that, just magic stuff. Yeah.
Is there a message you'd like to get out into the livestock industry or the working dog community?
Yeah, just look after your dogs, look after your stock. Sheep drive you mad every now and again, and sometimes if the sheep are playing up, you take it out on your dog. But my 2 boys both work at home and they get a bit frustrated. They haven't been as long as I have, and they get frustrated with the sheep and probably rousing the dogs a bit too much. But the main thing is just take your time with your dogs. You can't be hard on them. They still have to respect you, but you can't be hard on them. Greg Prince said to me once, you can't make a dog do anything. You have to be able to teach it, but they have to be teachable. Like you can't teach them if it's not in them naturally. But you know, the real hard handlers, they don't persist. Like they're too hard on their dogs, and the dogs blow up eventually. So probably teach them rather than, well, you can't make them. They might do it once or twice, but eventually they'll bail out. So you just have to take your dog along slowly. And if they've got it in them, they'll get better and better. And they get to 14, 18 months of age and away they go. Then you've got them for life then.
Away from dogs, mate, do you have a hobby or a hidden talent that people wouldn't know about?
Now, I've got a couple of boys that play football. I'm actually vice president of the Gundagai Tigers Rugby League.
There you go. Give them a plug, mate.
One son in particular, he was at West Tigers for a couple of years, and he's quite a good footballer. So I follow the Gundagai Tigers religiously all winter. So and Will, my other son Will, he's a very good footballer too. So I love that. I'd rather do it than dog trial, actually, watching my boys play footy.
Geez, imagine how they would progress as Parramatta juniors then.
I don't know how they went. Yeah, James played with Mitch Moses quite a bit when he was younger, and James Tedesco and those boys. But
look where they are now, mate. Like, so he must be half decent if he was playing with those boys.
I love rugby league. For anyone in Victoria watching, I've got a thing about Australian rules. The material made out of their shorts are made out of, must be the best in the world, because they get them when they're 7 and they still wear them when they're 7. All you Victorians, whatever that material is you make your shorts out of, get on it.
Maybe we could get into making dog coats or something for them out of that material, mate.
That's for Ian O'Connell, that one.
What would you like to see on the Dog Talk website, or what can we do to service our listeners and community?
Oh, I think look, I'm pretty illiterate as far as I can't even send a text on a phone, so I'd rather be out working a dog. But no, this is good what you two are doing. It's just get the word out there, get more people interested. You know, there's that many people that love farming and working, and there's that many farmers that, you know, I would get a phone call once or twice every week. I've had one dog for years and he's just died, and I've got shearing next week. So they just need to get out there and get more skills and get more dogs. And yeah, I don't know how some farmers get their work done. I really don't. So everything that's done, as far like you're doing now, and there's other things, I think, putting trials on the computer, it's all good.
No, thanks, mate. And we have got things coming up that we're working on at the moment as well. So hopefully, you know, it's our viewers and the community in general just find it more beneficial, and we're always open to ideas as well. So keep them flowing in. Mate, if there's one person you'd like to see sit down and have a chat to, I'm pretty sure I already know who you're going to say, but who would it be?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to Steve Condell. He'd be good to talk to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Larry Wallace was, good. But Chris Stapleton, have you done Chris Stapleton?
Chris will be on before the end of the year. He's just been a bit busy because of his sale.
Yeah, Matty Sherwood, like I don't know. Steve's not in the game anymore, but Steve's really switched on. Like Wagga do a very good school, the Wagga Club. I've helped twice now. They've done 3 schools, and they have a beginner section, a yard section, and a paddock section. And it's anyone that's looking to go to a good school. That's probably the best school I've seen. And they have 2 days. I don't know how much it costs, but they probably learn more at that school than I've seen at any school. It's just the Wagga Yard Dog Club run it. And so I did the paddock section, and they've got a camp draft arena that they use for the paddock. And then Matty Whitley, or I think Dean Inch has done one, Jeff McDougall's done one, the yards, and Steve Condell does the beginners. Yep. I'd say you'd get more out of that school than any school I've ever seen, because there's 3 coaches all going flat out all together.
No. Awesome.
So it's that time where you have to pick the best question from one of our people that sent one in. for their chance to win the bag of Enduro Plus working dog food?
Oh, God. Yeah, we'll go to Mary McKillop because she's a saint.
Well, this is the first time she actually hasn't sat around while we're having an interview, so she'll be ecstatic to hear that.
Right.
That's cool. Now, I'm sure you've heard about Laura's question, but just before we get there, you're probably not aware there, Bill, but we started a fundraiser for the beginning of this month with the Black Dog Foundation, One Step Forward. Yep, that's what it's called, yeah. And we actually have tripled, well, more than tripled what we planned on raising, so our target. So I just wanted to thank, we had a whole heap of donations from our working dog community. Every penny counts, and some people were extremely generous. And even the team members that got on board and walked, I think I've got another 7Ks to finish by tomorrow, so I'll get to my goal because that's that competitive streak in me. But I'd really like to thank everyone, not only the team members that got on board, but everyone that got on board with and spoke with their wallets. And also, even the people that didn't, I know people are extremely busy, but those guys that just talk about, mental health and getting it out there and just having a chat with your mate, like, it's probably sometimes people need it more than what you realise. So thank you for everyone out there that got on board with that. No worries. So it's that time, mate.
Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 40 horses the size of duck?
40 horses.
40.
We've doubled the fear.
That's a pretty
You're competitive, mate, so you like a challenge.
I'd pluck the duck. No, I don't know. I think I'd rather fight the duck.
Why the duck, mate? Why one duck?
Oh, bucket of iron. It's a strange question. I'll think about it and get back to you.
No worries.
It's a good way to throw a few people, isn't it?
Oh,
we also just wanted to thank Nathan Cave for today as well, for setting Bill up with the computer and taking the time out of his day to give us all the Q&A. So thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Appreciate that, mate.
Thanks.
Nathan set all this up, but I've seen some pups here today that look out in 18 months' time. If anyone can beat him in an office, they'll have to be good. He's got some really good pups about him.
Don't worry, mate. There's one in the back of my truck, just on the other side of that window. Actually, I didn't bring him. I brought the wrong car today. Nathan, hopefully he's got. Well, I think he's going to put some time into my dog for me as well. Get some of those real miles under him. But that sire is using there, mate. I think he's a pretty handy dog, and he's been consistent over a few different bitches now. So Nate's onto something.
Yeah, well, he's got toss in him. Wonder of mine was his grandfather.
Yep.
Yeah, but he works very similar to Wonder, that copper. He's a good young dog.
He is, mate. And I suppose while we're going to close up here, please remember we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad day for all of us. Thank you very much for your time, Bill.
Thank you.
Good on you. Thanks very much. That was good pleasure.
Thanks, mate.